Tarzan is the original owner of Porky's, and he says, we should open up strip club here in Panama. The police raided the club. 100 people are in jail. Russian mafia, Italian mafia, and I'm convinced I die in there too. I'm a Florida cracker, like through and through. I am a white trash. I call it Jewish white trash, Florida cracker.
Right. It's funny because if you're from Florida, like you have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. If I'm a white trash Florida cracker, I got no problem with it.
It's the truth.
Other people think it's an insult. I'm like,
cracker's not nice.
Yeah. No, I actually, my mom used to call me a little cracker, and my mother,
okay.
Being a Florida cracker was it was not.
Kinda normal.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't
a bad thing. Were there a lot of black folks around you?
No, but
crackers cute. But cracker ass cracker, mean, not nice. Cracker ass cracker. My father, when him and my mother finally had me, we're living in Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale area, and they split at 5. I was 5 years old. He was a wife beater. He was an alcoholic. For some reason, he didn't hit me. He scared the shit out of me, but I just didn't piss him off the way she did for some reason. You know what I mean? I mean, what could I have possibly done that would piss him off? And in that process, I wound up just living with an alcoholic. And I grew up fast because we were roommates. He wasn't a dad. Yeah. He was just a neglectful. He didn't hit me. He didn't whatever. He just didn't give a shit whether I was there or not.
Right, but you're just on your own.
I'm on my own. And so my neighborhood, which was lower middle class white mainly, whatever, it's a stone's throw from the Hard Rock. So if you're familiar with Hard Rock Hollywood, it's on Seminole land. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, we got one right here.
Yeah, the Tampa one right here. So it's the same exact thing. And I literally grew up right where that is now. You could throw a football and hit it. And my father was a Marlboro smoker. Buy cartons from the Indians, literally. And the funny story was, so we would go.
My dad used to do the same thing. We would drive down there and he'd get like 3 cartons because there's no taxes on them.
No
taxes. Back then, yeah.
Save a lot of money. So and encourage the cartons, you know what I mean? So it's like $20 and he could chain smoke these fuckers. And one of the sad things is I was always in the car. So like they would always see the kid with him, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like they started to know who we were at a certain point. And I would always they would give me the basket. It was the Dum Dum lollipops. And if you remember Dum Dum, they're about that big. It's like, it's not good for shit. It's a lollipop for like 3 seconds. But it was so great to me. It's like, so I get the lollipop. And the trade-off always was like, your dad's going to get cancer and we're going to give you diabetes. You know what I mean? It was a 2-in-1 kind of cool thing.
Yeah, they're constantly going to have you guys coming back. Yeah.
If not, even for like, Dad, listen, pick up some smokes. I want another lollipop, you know?
Listen, my dad smoked so much, he didn't need a lighter. When you're smoking so much, you don't need a lighter. There was just always one in his hand.
Really scary.
Yeah.
That's a 3-pack-a-day smoker.
You take the one cigarette out and you light it with the other cigarette.
That's awful.
It is awful. It is awful. It's 3-4 packs a day.
You
know what he died from, though?
Hit by a car.
No, cancer, of course. He did die. He eventually got lung cancer and died.
Yeah.
You know.
My father, this is not Woody Allen, like, hello, Jewish guy. This was a guy that was overweight due to literally drinking Southern Comfort like it was fucking water. So it was brown liquor, you know what I mean? Fat dude, looked like a biker, every shirt, sleeves cut off, every shirt into a V-neck. An intimidating guy, wore his earring in his right ear for some reason. And I asked him one day, I said, Dad, when my friends let me know that that's what, gay people do. I said, Dad, my friends tell me that like guys who wear earrings in their right ear only, it's a gay thing. And he says, you tell your friends, I wear my earring wherever the fuck I want. And I want it in my right ear. And he was the furthest thing from a gay guy. And it was a great answer. But it was one of those seminal moments, like not everyone gets to ask their father why his earring's in his right ear.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of fathers don't have earrings at all. By the way, always had a company car. One of the coolest cars we had was the green El Camino. So when he would pick me up from school, when I tell you about the school, I would ride in the back of the El Camino. I would stand up like in traffic and like wave to people. It was kind of a fun little side note of being poor. Because an El Camino is a poor person's car, pretty much. You know what I mean? There ain't none in Beverly Hills. So
I remember you keep saying the Jewish thing, the poor. I'll never forget. I was locked up with this Jewish guy, and I remember he'd been in prison several times. He had gotten out, and he remembered getting out, and he had to go. He's like, I went And he had a friend that was like, bro, I got a place for you to stay. He's like, oh, man, thank God. He's like, yeah. He said, and he drives me into a trailer park. And it's a single-wide, 1970 single-wide trailer. He goes, and I was like, bro, I can't stay here. He's like, you don't have a choice. This is all I've got. And he's like, no, you don't understand. He's like, I can't. And he's like, well, why? He's like, bro, I'm Jewish. And he goes, so? He's like, this is a white trash fucking neighborhood. He goes, I'm a Jew. He's, I cannot stay in a single-wide. It's at least got to be a house.
Yes.
At least. He said, now it could be a poor neighborhood because it's only temporary, but it can't be. I mean, he's like his buddy was
Which
just
is
like.
Nuts. But you know, there's in a pecking order, it's kind of the lowest of the low for white people.
Right.
A trailer and a single wide trailer is the lowest of the low. That's like Raising Arizona shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is a great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. But the coolest part about growing up in that, I would say, there was one positive, and it did formulate a lot for me, was I became a pop culture junkie. I'm a trivia guy. I'm a pop culture. I retain a lot of stuff. And at that time, we had cable when cable was literally invented. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, we had it before a lot of people. So I got to watch a lot of, he would be passed out. I would never sleep in my bedroom. I slept in his room, in his bed, on a color TV, and I stayed up all night and watched cable, Cinemax, HBO, MTV, anything I could, and I just became a sponge of all of that.
What about the channel with it had all the
stuff
in it, and every once in a while,
seconds it would be a tit.
Every once in a while, it'd be like, oh,
yeah. It would be it
would clear up for just for a second.
Yes.
And you
it would be Playboy Channel or Spice. It's funny they say that. So when they got invented, and if you didn't order it, it was scrambled, and it was like that jarble, tit, jarble. What was better than that?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I had a friend, I'll just say Eric, who once I was with Joel the Jew. His family had a lot of money. He had cable. They had cable all throughout. And they actually paid. They were the first people I ever met that paid for Playboy Channel. And it was a big thing for us. And he's like, wait till we get to channel 111. And it's like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? And it was the unscrambled. And it's like, these tits are on here the whole time. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, Eric, do you have this in your room? You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing if it was in the living room. It's like, and the funniest part was his dad was definitely gay. His name was M. I don't want to put him on the bus. I haven't talked to these people in 1,000 years. But he wore like the Hawaiian shirts and he had the whole thing. But it was a married couple. And he lived in my new neighborhood. And they were some of our original neighbors. But yeah, he was the first Playboy Channel. But he had it in his room. He was like a 10. You know what I mean? So that was a great experience. But I'm gonna do you one better. My father. Okay, so his bed, they call it a dust ruffle. Do you know what a dust ruffle is? Okay, so a lot of people don't know what it is. So he didn't have one on his bed. Probably too expensive, you know what I mean? And so when you don't have a dust ruffle, anything that you put under the bed you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Okay. So he didn't tuck his slippers there, or he didn't have his his other shoes or whatever that you would stick there, you know what I mean? My father had a stack of 20 nudie books,
right,
or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. And none of them were Playboy.
No, are these like Penthouse? Like that was the good stuff. You got to see all kinds of stuff.
He's
Playboy
right.
Didn't.
So let me tell you, we would have the kids that had like the fort. It was like, we're going to the fort. We built a fort, whatever. And there'd be like a couple Playboys in the fort. And that was a big deal. It's like, so-and-so stole his dad's Playboy. And it's like, holy shit. And you're like, it's a big deal, whatever. And I'm like, I see the Playboy and I'm like flinging it like, yeah, okay. Like it was like a fucking Science Today. And I said, no, you have to understand. I'm going to bring us some good magazine. I'm going to bring us something better. And like you said, my father, and I remember this vividly because it's a great story. It was Penthouse, it was High Society, it was Cherry, it was Wee, it was Swank, all of them. So, again, remember I told you I read at a high level. I read these magazines from page to page. I would sit in his room while he's getting drunk, and I would just sit there unadulterated, but I was reading them. So anything that was an article and anything, I was reading all of it. So you know what I mean?
What did these articles even say?
Well, I can tell you that Swank doesn't have many. Playboy had the most. Penthouse tried to be like somewhat of a thing. Hustler, they would put 2 articles in there, try to show that there's some sort of there's some news behind this. We're a periodical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is journalism.
This is journalism. But that's a great question. Swank didn't have anything. If anything, it would be like dirty poems or dirty letters. And they would always use those very his meat throbber, would go into my castle. You know what I mean? It was always like done like a fantasy novel. So I found that kind of funny and interesting. And I loved reading the Penthouse letters. The guys.
I was just gonna say. I was just gonna ask about the Penthouse letters.
All of those were in there. But
the Penthouse letters, it'd be like some guy who's a delivery man showed up at a upper middle class neighborhood to deliver something, and the stay at home wife of some lawyer who doesn't pay attention to her anymore is flirting with the guy, and before you know it, he's got her bent over, whatever.
Yeah. A lot of fantasy scenarios.
Now, supposedly these are letters that were mailed in from subscribers, but some are you just like.
Someone's writing that. There's a fucking guy with a cigar.
Yeah.
It was definitely written. By the way, I would have loved to have had a job doing that.
There comes a point in life when you realize you need to be more intentional about what you're eating every day. That's actually why I started using Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers partners with local American farms and ranchers to deliver 100% American meat straight to your door. No imports, no guessing where it came from, just real, high-quality meat you can trust. And I'll be honest, once I started getting their deliveries, it just made everything easier. I always have good steaks, chicken, whatever I need ready to go. No last-minute grocery runs, no cutting corners. And they just launched custom boxes. So now, instead of getting a pre-built box, you can pick exactly what you want. If you eat more steak, load it up with steaks. More chicken? Do that. It's built around what you actually use. And right now, when you start your plan, you'll get a choice of free meat that will be included with every order at no additional cost. And with my code INSIDE, you'll get $25 off your first order. That's free meat with every order and $25 off your first order with my code INSIDE when you start your plan with GoodRanchers.com. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered.
How fun could that have been? And then you had the comics, like there was little Fanny Annie and whatever, and these stupid things. But he makes a great point. Swank had no articles, just straight smut. And again, the difference in Playboy was it was cheesecake. It was tasteful. If nudity's gonna be tasteful, Playboy accomplished that.
They would have like true crime articles and stuff.
And they did. They had the football preview and then the interview. They always had a great interview subject on it. But Swank was literally like just spreading lips. Mm-hmm. It was raunchy as fuck. The point of why I bring it up is it definitely that was like a sexual, what do you call it, renaissance for me. I started to learn a lot and see a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I had a leg up on a lot of this stuff from these magazines. This was like a textbook at this point. So, and the funny part was my grandfather, rest in peace, my mother's father, would always come, obviously a pervert, and he would take me for pizza and baseball cards about once a month or whatever. And that was my kind of, seeing him. That was my visiting with him, whatever. And he would always pick up my dad's magazines. They would make like an exchange. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so when my dad got the fresh ones in that would now get under the bed, the old ones would go up in the closet, and Grandpa Joe would come and, get the closet ones and all that. And my father, I mean, God bless him, he just gave them away. I mean, how nice of him. And so my grandfather definitely seemed to be very happy that he was gonna. I thought he was coming to take, like he was happy to see me. You know what I mean? It wasn't. It had nothing to do with that. It was the magazines. He wanted his magazines, and so he would get them. So yeah, that was going to be a foreshadowing that I would wind up being in that industry. It's kind of ironic in a way because I didn't seek that out. So fast forward, my father winds up drinking himself worse and worse and worse. He winds up getting evicted from the place that I grew up in. He's living out of his car. Things just keep getting worse for him. Dead-end jobs, loses the job at Hollywood and falls apart, winds up going to New York to be with family there. And by that time, I blew off high school. So then I just decided to go to New York. I wound up working. I did some production assistant work, and I wanted to be a director and this and that. I worked at some video stores, and I really kind of was trying to hone my skills in the whole Hollywood thing, whatever. When I worked at this, it was called Kim's Underground Video. It was the coolest video store. They had 5 of them in Manhattan, and it was everything that Blockbuster wasn't.
Right.
Okay. And we had a section there. So it was in Greenwich Village. And if people don't know, Greenwich Village is a very gay section of Manhattan. But we had a lot of celebrities come in. I met Drew Barrymore, and I met Mike Myers, and a lot of different celebrities that would come in there. Because again, it was like in the heart of New York City and this and that. I think Adam Sandler, different people come in there. But one particular guy comes in, and he's a pimp, and he's dressed up in the whole pimp fucking getup. And I'm behind the counter, and I'm just watching this guy, and he's got the birds on both shoulders. I mean, it was literally like out of the movies. And I'm watching this guy, and he's got 6 tapes. Puts them down on the counter. He puts them down. He's like, I'm going to pick out 6 more. I'm returning these, and because that was the limit that you could get. So I'm going to pick out 6 more, and so no problem, man, no problem. And we're just watching this guy, and him and these women are reading the box. I've never seen anyone read the boxes so closely, like making informed decisions. You know what I mean? It's just like pick up the box. It's like, yeah, she looks good. These people were reading them. They spent an hour in there. No exaggeration. They spent an hour. And they come back. He's got the 6 movies.
You don't want to, if it's like volume 3, you don't want to get volume 3. You need to see volume 1 and 2 before you get to volume 3.
It's so important that you see the volumes before it of how we got here.
Yeah, the storyline. I'll be lost.
Yes.
I'll be lost.
Clearly, like
I don't even know who this delivery guy is.
Yeah. How does she wind up banging Randy in 3? Because she's banging Troy in 1. It's such a great point because that's such an important factor to this, by the way. So he grabs his 6, and I'm looking now. He put them on the counter. I didn't pay much attention to him. So I didn't check him in yet until he had his new 6. So it's like, all right, we got to retrieve his new 6. We got to put his old 6 back in the system. Fair swap, right? I go and I'm looking and I'm going to put them in. I'm noticing the numbers. Everything about them's different. And I'm like, oh shit, these aren't our movies. This guy just spent an hour picking out his new part 3 of Tushy Angels or whatever you're talking about. And so I tell him, I said, listen, home skillet, home slice, these aren't ours. So the bad news is I can't rent you these 6 because you still have 6 of ours somewhere.
Right.
It was like, you ever seen True Romance?
Yeah.
You remember Drexel?
I don't remember.
Okay, so Drexel was the guy, the pimp that Christian Slater goes around, and it was Gary Oldman. He's like a white wigger type of dude, whatever. Well, this was a black version of that. He was just like, it was a character, and he's playing movies. Obviously, he's got somewhere he's playing these movies. I'm assuming he has like an in-call somewhere. Why do you need? If you're getting 6 from me and you have another 6 from another place, you got 12 movies. You're not watching these just as some casual guy fast forwarding to the good parts. He's got whores with him. You know what I mean? There's a whole thing going on here. So I'm assuming he had an actual place that he's playing these in the background of. And again, he's dressed in the pimp gear. You know what I mean? The whole thing. And so I say to my guys, I says, home slice, you can't get these. And he flipped out. And he was like insistent that those 6, he wants those movies. And I told him, I said, listen, here's the good news. I'm going to put them aside for you. All right. Nobody wants to see Black Butt 7 anyways. You're fine. You know what I mean? I said, but you got to bring those other ones back. Yeah. If he did, I wasn't on shift, so I never know whatever happened. So that was that. That was that was the most fun story in that. But great greatest video store. What a great experience. Anyways, so I'm in New York and I can't figure shit out and this and that, and I'm doing some dumb shit. I've always done some dumb shit to make money. It was just never. Things were never. I could never get a job.
Right.
I didn't want to work a job. I didn't have the skills for a job. And I didn't have the education for a job. And in New York, it's dead end jobs, and the main one was I wound up working with my father. I was living with my father at a nursery in Brooklyn. I was the job I got there first was a Christmas tree night watchman in the hood. See, these folks in the neighborhood would jump the fence and steal the trees. And so we had some nice trees. I mean, a Fraser fir is like $85. Yeah. You know, this is an 8-foot Fraser fir. You know what I mean? Like this is worth stealing. And they're going to take it in the hood. They're going to sell for $40 all day. And so they needed somebody on the property at night to watch over the trees so people didn't steal them. So they kept me in this building. Said, yeah, bring your Nintendo or whatever fuck. It's going to keep you awake at night.
Right.
Listen to sports radio all night. You cannot go to sleep. You have to be up. Keep the lights on. Here's an old shotgun that may work, may not work, and a rusty machete. And hopefully you won't have to use these things. You'll just call the cops if they come. You know what I mean? You'll hear the rickety of the fence because they're going to be jumping the fence or whatnot. And so I did that for two different years in December. And with that, before I would come into work, and by the way, it was all black folks that worked at the nursery. So I got cool with a lot of these guys. I spent a lot of time in the projects. And there's a good story that's tied in with that. And so I wound up working in the nursery. My father would manage it the owner was a football buddy of his. And that guy, he was an older guy, had some kids, and he wanted to be around his kids more. He had young children. So he's like, told my father, like, just run it for me, man. I'll pay you decently, whatever. And so, you know, he wound up overseeing this place for him. And so because we were in the hood, the nursery was in the hood, it was all black folks that worked along with me, like 4 people, whatever. And again, we're spraying the plants and we're laying sod, planting trees. We got to unload the trucks of trees. These trees are 100, 200 pounds. This was like hard. It was not a fun job. It's the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And so it was fun to do the Christmas trees. So what was happened was every late November, December, now it was Christmas tree time. And this is before there were Walmarts and all these places that sold them. So you went to it was always a private Christmas tree place, whatever. And so I got to selling Christmas trees. I learned a lot about people by how they buy Christmas trees. There's something wrong with people, how seriously they take it. You know, I had the guys that he'd pull the one of the branches off and pull the needles, and they would smell the needles. And I'm not really smelling this. And I was like, yeah, we're outdoors. Yeah. You're not going to smell it. But when in your house, you're going to smell it because it's going to be nice and warm. You know what I mean? And that's when it gives off the smell. I said, trust me. And then you have the people so the trees would be on a pin on a pallet, right? If they don't like any of those, they start pointing at the ones like, can you open that one up and open them? So now you're opening 10 trees. You know, they're not taking any of them. This one's got a bald spot. This one's got a whatever. So there was and fights. People would fight over tree. I mean, this is supposed to be a nice experience. And I would watch husband and wives fight over the height or the size or whatever, or the type of tree. So again, like nobody gets along for nothing, even down to that. It was just such a strange thing. So that was one of my odd jobs. So while I was doing that, we had a neighbor in the apartment complex. It was a very small apartment that my aunt knew very well. And he was like this hippie dude, little hippie guy. And he was like the kind of guy that made beads and would sell them at the flea market, you know, and this and that. And we'll just say his name rhymed with Belliot. And he would go out of town and he would leave his keys for my aunt. He's like, you mind feeding the cat? And he had a sticker on his door for colitis and Crohn's disease. Apparently he had some problems. And with that, he smoked mad weed. And whatever he smoked was very strong because we could smell it throughout the hallways. It permeated the fucking building. And that's why he had the stickers, was like, because this was when this is all illegal.
Yeah. But I have a license. I'm allowed to do this.
I can do this. And I don't know if it was real or not, but he had some sticker he fucking put on the door. Yeah. Nobody bothered him. There wasn't that many people in the building. And so I told my aunt one day, I says, I'll feed Elliot's cat. You're at work. Let me go feed the cat. And I walk in, and that's when I discovered Elliot's lair. And there's little joints here on the table, this, and that. And I'm looking around. I'm like, where's the weed at?
Right.
And I go into his closet, and it literally was fucking Santa's sack.
Right.
It was the biggest sack of weed I've ever seen in my life. It looked like it was 20 pounds. And so that to me was like I hit the mother load. And so it was called Wallbaum's, was the grocery store in the area. And so I took tons and tons of it, threw it in Wallbaum's bags and just handfuls of it. And I wound up selling it in the hood, and I wound up selling it at my barber shop. It was an all-black barber shop on Rockaway Parkway. And I told them, I said, I got something really good. Here's some samples for these guys. And I said, I got something really good. And they said, how much are your prices? And it was free. So I'm undercutting the entire market. And I wrote it. This was when beepers and pagers were still a thing. So on the back, I knew that black folks used the term trees for weed. It was a common thing. So I wrote my pager number and I wrote trees on there, TREEZ. I made sure it was like cool, you know what I mean? And I left a business card with the main guy at the thing. And I knew that barbershop alone was going to make me rich.
Right.
Because there's like 10 of them and whoever else that went. And again, this was at blue light special prices. And I remember as I'm walking out and the guy, I wasn't writing this if my name was Trees. I wrote it that this is for trees if you want them. And I remember that I'm walking out the door and I hear it like from behind me and I hear like, hey, yo, Trees. And I turn around. He's like, I'm going to call you, man. And sure as shit, they did. And I was selling so much weed that I kept having to steal more weed. And at a certain point, he realized there's something's wrong here.
Yeah.
This is starting to deplete, you know? And he can't figure it out, but at some point he does. And I don't know what it is, but my father had a Ford Explorer, and I'm in it with like 4 black dudes, and we're all just acting a fool and listening to DMX and Cameron or whatever the fuck it was in New York, whatever. And Belliot pulls up right next to us at a light, and he has the little old Astro van, whatever, and all that. And he pulls up, and I'm looking at him, and he turns and he looks at me, and he just shakes his head in disgust. And I'm like, I'm not sure what that meant. But that night when I go to return my father's truck, Elliot's Astro van is in the nursery parking lot. And the gig was up, and he tells my father, look, your son's been stealing all this from me. And here's the news. This is not my stuff. This is Colombians that are fronting me all this stuff. Now, my father's not really the wiser than he has no idea, whatever. So he's just believing all of this. Mm-hmm. And he says, listen, and what made me think it's possible was the sheer amount. There was so much that somebody was doing something. This wasn't just this guy. And so he scared us enough to where I decided I wasn't staying in New York anymore. My father gave him a bunch of money. It was really the nicest thing my father ever did for me. The only thing he really ever did for me was kind of pay off that little debt. And then I said to myself, I don't know if it's worth staying here and running the risk of this Colombia thing or whatever. I don't think it's worth, what might be. I don't know if he's lying or not, but I'm not interested in finding out.
Right.
So that's when I go back down to Florida, and the girl that I was speaking with, I wind up shacking up with, who I now have a baby with, and I'm 22 years old. This is an important part because this is where I meet Tony, and now we'll get into the real heart of what a lot of this is. And so my mother works for an attorney, and it's a divorce attorney in Broward County. A client of theirs was this gentleman named Tony. She would always call him Tony Baboni, and she would tell me about him. She's like, you got to meet this guy, and this, that. So he sees my football picture on the desk, and he asks her, he says, that's your son? He says, how recent is that? Whatever. He says, well, he just graduated. It was like a year ago, whatever, but he's out of high school now. And he said to me, he says, I'd love to meet him. And so that was the beginning of going down to Porky's and meeting this guy. My mother set it up. She's like, I think you'll get along with him. You know what I mean? Like, who knows, whatever.
Porky's is
the strip club in Hialeah that Tony worked at, that Tarzan was the original owner of, I believe you interviewed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so Tarzan is the original owner of Porky's in Hialeah, named after the movie. He was a big fan of the movie. He probably mentioned that thing. And that's how that came to be. A lot of people used to joke, why would you call it Porky's? Is it all fat girls there? And it was like, well, actually, there are a lot of fat girls here.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it is very fitting. But I came in post Tarzan. So I'm going to get to that in a second. My friendship with Tony was I come and I visit. And Tony's a pothead. I'm a pothead. And we hit it off. And he gave me a shot at the club. I become Tony's right-hand man at that point. You know what I mean? Like he's doing his thing.
Have you ever actually read what's in your toothpaste? Fluoride, SLS, glycerin, foaming agents, a chemical cocktail you're putting in your mouth twice a day. Big Toothpaste has been selling you the same toxic formula for decades. The Van Man Company is changing that with their Miracle Tooth Powder, and people are ditching traditional toothpaste by the thousands. Van Man's toothpaste powder uses real grass-fed cattle bone hydroxyapatite, the same mineral structure as your actual teeth, to remineralize and strengthen your enamel naturally. Most hydroxyapatite on the market is synthetic. Van Man uses the real thing from grass-fed cattle, loaded with virtually all the minerals needed to rebuild tooth structure. Zero fluoride, zero SLS, zero foaming agents. It's completely edible because everything you put in your mouth should be. Users report whiter teeth, less plaque, and you wake up without that gross film in your mouth because there are no foaming agents destroying your natural saliva production. Make the switch to real oral care. Go to vanman.shop/inside and use code INSIDE for 15% off your first order. That's vanman.shop/inside and use code INSIDE for 15% off your first order. Van Man, real ingredients, no exceptions.
My Tuesday turns to Wednesday, turns to Thursday, turns to Friday, and now I have all the days. And Jimmy was not a big fan of that. I had a lot of problems with Jimmy, the other manager. He tried to set me up. And so I remember this, Jimmy has a guy come up to me and he tries to set me up. And he's like, you know where I can get some? And I was like, what? Yeah. And why would you ask me? You know, I'm new here. Like, you know, and so I play along with him. I was like, oh, I'll set you up. I'll make sure I get you somewhere. And then he literally says, he claps his hands. He's like, I got you. You're busted. Well, when then they go and tell Tony, and Tony, it just falls on deaf ears. It was right. It was obvious that it was like this bullshit setup.
Yeah.
And you also never caught me doing anything, right. Whatever. So there was nothing to
yeah,
get
all you said was, yeah, I got you.
And I don't know why he did that. He let it be known that he had gotten me and this and that, whatever. So me and Tony became closer and closer. Jimmy wasn't as who was the manager before me. They kind of started to fall more out. I'll give you a great story. We called it the shit trial. Okay, so the shit trial went like this. Jimmy was a big heavy guy. I'm a big guy. Tony's a big guy. This guy was way bigger than us. And Jimmy, on a day that we weren't there, he took a shit, and his he must have shit his pants. This was a common problem for this guy. And adjacent to our building, kind of like this square, if this was the building, this was a square, it was an unfinished construction area to the building that Bill Seidel never finished. So there was rebar and all this stuff that was hanging, and there was it was just an unfinished addition to the building. And Jimmy went to the bathroom and apparently decided he's going to throw his dirty duty underwear into that garbage area, but he never makes it, and it hangs on the rebar like it's a pirate's flag. You know what I mean? Because they're very big underwear. Like, let's just say it's a 3X. You know what I mean? And it's got like a little Debbie Brownie in it on top of it. So so we have a dancer and another DJ discover it, because that's the weed spot. It's the side door where if you're gonna smoke weed, you put one of the ugly girls up on stage, you put on Stairway to Heaven, and now she's gonna do 8 minutes up there, unadulterated. You don't have to change anybody, and you can get high for 8 minutes, because songs are typically 3-4 minutes. They want to get down. That's not where the money is. You know what I mean? And so
put a Paradise by the Dashboard lights up.
That's
there
a great one.
Yeah.
Or anything by Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And if you really want to fuck a girl over, you put Fish. That's like going to be 20 minutes of like utter fucking disaster. So, but that's a good call. I got to remember that the Meatloaf song. Bohemian Rhapsody was another good. So, and this is a God's honest one. We're joking about a lot of them. Hotel California.
Yeah, super long.
Great one. So Carlos discovers the undies, and he says, he calls Tony. He's like, Jimmy left these undies. These are definitely Jimmy's undies. It had to be Jimmy's undies. And everything was a goof. Everything was funny, whatever. So Tony's like, all right, listen, I need you to save those underwear. I'm calling Jimmy right now. Jimmy's with me. He says, put Jimmy on the phone. I says, all right. He says, Jimmy, I'm telling you right now, we got a problem. He says, you're going to lose shifts. Otherwise, I have to do a shit trial. And we're going to find out. We're going to get to the bottom. Are those your underwear? Jimmy was like, those are not my underwear. And he says, are those your underwear? He says, well, we're going to find out. So 3 days later, we have what's called the shit trial. We have 3 of our hottest dancers are the jury. Another one of our bouncers was the judge. I was the prosecuting attorney. And Jimmy was his own defense. The guy and the girl, the dancer that found the dirty underwear, literally made one of those science project 3-way. You know those, when you had a science project, you had to do the 3 board or whatever the fuck it was? They did it like it was state's evidence in a courtroom, and pictures of it and this and that, whatever, and a heading and all that. They bring it in, and he tells Jimmy, he says, listen, you have to take a shit, and we got to test it. We're going to send it off to the labs to test the shit in the undies to your shit. So he's taking it to the 10th extreme, but it's all a goof. The whole point of it was, when we would do things and we would talk, Tony was like, this is great for the show. He treated it like it was The Office, like we were being followed by cameras.
Right.
Everything we're doing was being followed by cameras. There were never cameras. But everything he did, it was almost delusional. He's like, isn't this great for the show? We'd be getting high or fucked up. But he's like, this is great for the show. There's no fucking show. But the shit trial was done specifically because he could. He had the power.
Yeah.
The whole thing's a goof. Jimmy's not finding it funny, though. Again, now Jimmy's like a 450-pound guy. He's a big, big dude.
Yeah.
And so he says, you got to shit in it. And we had this guy named Leo, who was a customer. He was not a midget, but he was just short enough to not like be a human being, but not a midget. You know what I mean? I take that back.
That is horrible.
I take that back. I mean, he's just a little dude.
Yeah.
He's not, it's not chromosomal, if that's the word. Do you know what I mean?
So he wasn't one of the big forehead midgets.
That's called hychondroplasia.
Oh, really?
That. Well, because there's hot dwarves that don't have that, and then there's dwarves that are just like, not a forehead, that's an 8-head, they would call that, right? So God bless her, man. Where does she buy her hats? But so the shit trial. So Jimmy, he says, Leo is going to test the shit. Leo, we were told, was a marine biologist. So Jimmy, he says, all right, I'll take the shit. He knows he has to. Like, his job's on the line a little bit. And so he's like, I'll take a shit. He must have ordered a sandwich, whatever. It wasn't the styrofoam, it was the plastic to-goes, right? And I see him take his to-go. Must have been a tuna fish sandwich in it before. You know what I mean? I could see the tuna residue, whatever. And so he cleans it out in the bathroom. He takes a shit in it, closes it up. He's walking with it with a shit in it. I can see, because I'm in the DJ booth, I can see there's a shit in this thing. And he goes and he puts it in the walk-in cooler for preservation. And I follow him, and in the walk-in cooler, it immediately fucking fogs up. You know what I mean? So you knew there was a real shit in there just from the temperature situation. And I tell Tony, I'm like, Tony, he took a shit. It's happening. Like, we're going to get to test this. So the day of the trial, it's like 2 days later, or that night or whatever, he takes the shit, and we're going to do it that night. And Jimmy doesn't want to be here for this trial. He's embarrassed. Again, part of this is a grown man. And I would say he was in his, he was a little older than me. So let's just say he's 39, 40. He's a man. And so Jimmy, he's like, Jimmy, you got to stay for the trial. And he says, matter of fact, go get your shit. Go get your shit out of the cooler. And he does. And so it's like a table. It's like bigger than this. And the 3 hot dancers are sitting at the table. And Jimmy just takes the to-go bin, and he just flings it like on the table. And I swear to God, it was like a movie. It slides like right across, like in front of the girls, and literally like the top opens up. You know what I mean? I swear you couldn't have done it any better if you like did it with like special effects. And the girls are like, oh my God. They don't know what to expect. They just hear there's a shit trial. They're like, oh my God, what is that? So they're like mortified and whatever, and like we're dying laughing. We move it away from them. So yeah, just put it over here, whatever. And so obviously we don't get it tested. There's no fucking real Quest Labs here or whatever, this and that. But so because everyone's there now and we made it look like a trial. Tony starts yelling at Jimmy, and he's like, "Is this your shit?" He's like, "No, that's not my shit." He says, "I'm telling you right now, is this your?" And he says, and this is an important factor now to how this all wraps up. The underwear that was thrown on the rebar was a brand called George Foreman. George Foreman's those are big and tall.
Okay.
They don't sell them at fucking JCPenney or Walmart. Yeah. So Jimmy needed a big and tall pair. So they were George Foreman's. Well, nobody wears George Foreman's. That's the key.
Yeah, of course.
You don't know anyone in your whole life that had a pair of George Foreman's on. So Jimmy, we knew he wore those. And so Tony's like, "Is that your shit? Is that your shit?" And he's like, "It's not my shit. You're never going to get me." And now he's starting to like kind of revel in it. Like, "You're never going to get me," whatever. And he's like, I'm fucking done with this. Fuck this trial. Fuck everything. I'm done with this. And he starts to walk out the back door. And Tony's like, "I've got one last question for you." And this was now like the Few Good Men. You know, like, "I want the truth."
Yeah.
This is how it's culminating. And he says, "I want to know right now, pull your fucking pants down and show us your George Foreman's." And Jimmy's like, "No." And he goes, "Pull your fucking pants down." And on his way out, this is a 450-pound guy. On his way out, that back door, he opens the door and he lifts his leg and he pulls his pants down, and he's not wearing any underwear at all. And it's just one giant moon cheek to show us he's not wearing any underwear. And the whole theory is he knew not to wear the underwear,
of course,
because that was going to do him in. And he shut the door and he was off, and the trial was over. And we had to. He was voted. It was not guilty. It was not. We could never prove that it was his shit. But there's no doubt that he did it. Jimmy had a shitting problem. He liked to wear the button ups. A lot of bowling style button ups. And big guys, I think it's like a common thing. But one of Jimmy's problems was because he couldn't necessarily wipe his butt, I think, that well. So, that's a common big guy, big girl problem. Big girls they don't know how to, it's the front to back instead. Don't go back to front. You know what I mean? But the bigger girls, that's what they do. And so Jimmy had that problem. And one of the things was because he wasn't always so clean, he the tail of the shirt would wind up in his booty or in his crack. And so he would always have like a duty tail on his shirts. That was always a problem. Like, and he lived near the club, so he would go home, be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take a shower," and it's like it's midday. Who's leaving the club to take a shower? But the whole point was to take a shower was more to really change the shirt, because now it's got its duty tail on it, and you gotta get rid of that. Jimmy was such a mess that Tony would actually put a ban on any girls that gave Jimmy head or mess with Jimmy, and we knew who they were. They were put on a scarlet letter list, actually. Like, so the girls that we would have our fun with and do our things with were, if they made Jimmy's list, well, they were no longer on our list, and then it could actually have an effect on your employment. And one day he actually put out like a decree. If any girls go with Jimmy, we may have to fire you because you lowered your bar so low that, like, what were you doing? And it's Jimmy just, he was a mess. He brought on himself. One of the reasons why I succeeded there was he was very mean, very ornery. And I think not only was I a breath of fresh air, so I was this new person, but I was younger, and I had a real kinship with these girls. Tony once made a joke. He says, "I know why you do so good at this. I mean, you're obviously a people person, but I can see why you've become successful at this." Because he wasn't sure what he was going to get out of me. I was never in that industry. That was my only time in that industry. And so he wasn't sure what was going to be. And he said, "You're the 13th stripper. You are them. You're just a man. Your life parallels all of their lives. of like kind of what they've gone through and why they have daddy issues and all this messed up shit. You're that person. You just happen to be a guy. And so I think that it resonates with them. And I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But I was also good to them, and it made it easy that I had a shitty manager guy who I took all of his DJ shifts. You know what I mean? That's why he set me up. I hurt his pocket. And so, that was a big factor in that. So with Tony, we definitely did a lot of indulging in terms of, women as a vice. Tony was very big on, he had his girlfriend, he had a girlfriend with his girlfriend. And then he also just Backpage was very popular. Craigslist was very popular. Excitement magazine was very popular. So these were just where there were just girls everywhere. You could get a girl, anything, whatever. So this was very common. Part of it was, so through the club, a lot of these girls, Porky's had the only downstairs VIP room. One of the things that made Porky's different and special was you were gonna fuck there, right? Okay, you kind of knew it. There were clubs in Miami that were like that had that notoriety. There was one that was really, really low down called Centro Español. That was and it was just like all girls off the boat and very, very cheap. And it was somewhere off the river, and they put us to shame. Like, we thought we were low down. Porky's was a C club. It was a hood club. Hialeah. I mean, everything around us was Alapata, Liberty City. Like, these were like Miami Springs and all. These were a lot of these areas where you just didn't want to make a wrong turn. You know what I mean? Like, this is somewhere you didn't go at night. So Porky's was kind of known as that sort of club. A lot of dope activity, a lot of dope boys. When we would have our troubles there, the police told us, when they finally raided it, they said to us, so when Bill Seidel passed away, that's when I think the protection ended for the club.
Right.
And so what happened was Miami-Dade police had a hard-on for us. Hialeah police, which were basically gang members turned police officers, you can look at them and tell, they were pretty cool about everything. They didn't break our balls, but Miami-Dade had a hard on. And so when Bill Seidel passes away, Miami-Dade comes, raids the club, takes the liquor license, and just ends it right there. And they basically put a statement saying that nobody other than dancers, nobody could work. They were forcing the sale of it, so the Seidels had to sell it, the family, and that nobody could work there from the old regime was not allowed to work there. Like, by law, we were not going to allow that and whatnot. So they wound up opening up again. I think it's a club now called Baez Cabaret. It went all Hispanic. The whole area is Hispanic. There was another shitty club called Stonewall. The thing about Porky's, again, was I always made a joke. You could go to a club and you could ogle a 10 or maybe touch her thigh, or you can go to Porky's and fuck a 7.
Right.
And that was kind of what it seemed to become. At that time, I started getting a little proficient in all everything that was like the sex business I became very knowledgeable about. So I wound up meeting the Reality Kings guys and the Bang Bros guys, Bang Bros.
Yeah.
And because they were all out of Miami, and this is when it was brand new. So I knew people that were affiliated with them. And there's I'm an extra in a movie called, it's a line of, they called them Fuck Force 5. And it was these 5 girls, whatever. And it was one of the sub channels, like the Bang Bus and whatever and all that. And it was a set up silk screening place, you know what I mean? And the girls are like, they would come in and the whole thing was like, we're here for our shirts. And it was like, and she's like, but we don't have any money to pay for them. So, so the whole thing was like, well, I got a way for, we can do some barter, you know what I mean? And I was, obviously I wasn't an actor in it, but I was, I'm just one of the silk screen guys You know, that's like watching all the action, you know, like making the shirt, pressing the shirts while some other girl's getting railed, you know what I mean? But they set it up like it was like a legit, like, you know, like a real t-shirt factory, whatever. So wound up learning a lot about that industry, learning about the cam industry. They wound up naked.com. And so the webcamming industry, I started to learn, was also very lucrative. That whole reading those magazines, that was my introduction to basically. My only skill is in the sex business. So even at Porky's, you know, these girls, they were fucking this and that, whatever. So it also became like, you know, you're kind of pimping these girls out. Everybody was available. So, you know, like you had friends, you had customers, this and that. So now you can offer these girls, you're brokering your deals, you're doing your thing, whatever. And it's just also how far did you want to take that? You know what I mean? So that became a thing. So I really got to, it was working at Porky's for me, just became like a one-stop pit stop of learning everything that was in the sex business. Mm-hmm. So whether it was prostitution and escorting, and Tony had his own escort agency, so I learned a lot from him and doing things with him with that. And then with the cam business, the business, and the strip club business. So it was all the ways that basically girls can make money, you know, because sex sells. Yeah. So this there wasn't much more of it. It covered all of that. So that became that was my college. So when Porky's got raided and everything came to an end, I pretty much I lost everything. Yeah. I was used to a certain lifestyle, and everything just came to a crashing down. And so we get told about Panama from a friend of his who had already kind of experienced Costa Rica, and his thing was, you got to check out this other country. Panama is like the next forefront, and your money's going to go a lot further there. So you should look into this. Now, Tony was already a world traveler, this and that, and doing his thing.
And so you're going to Panama for what reason?
So Panama is it was really to start a new life. Tony he had already been traveling a lot, so he was like, all right, let's see what this is all about. So when we go there for the first time, I'm thinking this is a jungle. I don't know anything about Latin America. I don't know anything about what's going on there for real. And the airport isn't a jungle, but as we're driving out, we get to the heart. It's like New York City. Panama City, the center and the capital, is like New York, Miami, and Las Vegas wrapped in like this Tootsie Roll. It's like Miami because it's hot and it's all Latin and it looks the part. It's like New York because it's cobblestone streets and boutiques and cafes. It's not all the commercial shit. And it's like Las Vegas because it had legal gambling and legal prostitution. And just that was a big thing there. Mm-hmm. We go there, we meet with an attorney, and the attorney he's already looking into properties there. He's showing us all these properties they're not even finished yet. Started to notice why they don't finish them. There's a huge money laundering situation in Panama. It's all the coke money gets laundered there. There's tons of banks there. We started kind of picking up on that, and none of the construction ever gets done. I feel like they're laundering all the money through construction, whatnot. Mm-hmm. He buys 7 properties. The first time we sit down with like a real estate guy, this attorney, and again, he's literally just showing this through like in a book, mm-hmm. You know, like one of those that get you interested in the property. I forget the name. What do you call them? So. He winds up buying 7 of them at one time.
Like a brochure?
Yeah, like a brochure. Yeah. And I said to him, I says, because this was all him, I says, I kind of feel like all these are mine as well. Like this is, I have nothing to do with this, but like essentially this is all mine as well. And again, we were just like, it was a perfect team. So we go to Panama and he starts bongos. It's a wing joint. Almost like Hooter style, this and that, whatever. And that was in the heart of Panama City, right by the main casino and this and that. Starts a coffee shop as well. We have a hot dog cart kind of thing, whatever. And we're just doing this, whatever. And it's going on, and I'm going through a divorce situation, and at this point, my thing is I'm gonna retire here. This is the goal is to retire here. And so what happens is Tarzan starts to call Tony kind of out of the blue, and Tarzan he would Skype him and this and that, and Tarzan was talking about, like, hey, what's going on in Panama? It was very interesting. And this time Tarzan couldn't come to the United States, from what I understood. He's
stuck in Israel, right?
Yeah. And so I think he was going to other countries, doing other business things or ideas, whatever, and what he can get going on. And then one day he just shows up in Panama, and we're drinking at Bongos, probably drunk, whatever, and we're drinking, and the bing bong of the door opens up, and in comes Tarzan, and it was for me it was a crazy experience because I only knew this guy from like the lore of like the whole, you know what I mean, like just everything it was like storybook to me. I never knew the guy,
right?
And so in he comes, and we wind up drinking and having, we're having a good time, this and that. And it's at that point that Tarzan basically says, to Tony, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and he says, we should open up strip club here in Panama, Miami style. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, maybe this might not be a good idea. Like, shit kind of went south down there, whatever. And that was it. Tony only needed to hear that, and then the theory was, we're gonna open up a club here. I wasn't sure that was a good idea. I personally wasn't sure because of what happened with Tarzan in the States. This could be, who knows what can be, what not. But it was far be it for me to tell Tony, what he was going to do and this, that, and the other. And so we opened up Dollhouse, and Dollhouse was done with, there were other Russians that were there that owned Moulin Rouge, and it was on V Block, Via Veneto in Panama. This was the spot. And the Veneto Casino was a Wyndham Grand Casino that had 150 whores, prostitutes that were strewn about the entire property, all there just waiting to be picked, like a Sadie Hawkins dance. And they're just sitting there waiting. And
like the red light district.
It was, yeah, essentially, but it wasn't in the street. It was like in the place. And some girls were on the poker machines. Some girls were at the bar. Some were just sitting and eating, and some were at the tables, whatever. So like you went up the escalator and you went to this place, and it was just 150 Colombians, mainly some Panamanians, and it was just absolute, like, it was the most insane thing you could ever imagine. Because even the red light, there's, all right, she's standing in a window, whatever, and there's maybe 20, you know what I mean? And you got to walk a thing. This was 150 people, like it was like a candy store. It was like absolutely insane. So that was the spot. So Moulin Rouge was right near there, and Moulin Rouge was basically a whorehouse. These are brothels. Right. So when Panama had legal prostitution. So the key to Panama was the girls could come over on a prostitution visa. They all came from Colombia, just so you know.
Yeah.
So they come on a prostitution visa. They had to pay $1,500 for that. You come on a visitor visa, it's $500. These guys were getting these girls in at $500. They had some sort of in, but that was a no-no. Now, girls that came in on visitor visas would be the ones that worked in the casino. They didn't work the streets. It wasn't like that there. They would maybe go online, or they would work in nice establishments, bars, and this and that. But then you had your actual brothels. Those were girls that had their paperwork, and they were like on record as being girls. So that's what Moulin Rouge was, the Russians had, and that's what Tarzan and Tony's place became, Dollhouse, which is what we had. So I was the number 3 at Dollhouse. I was the main DJ there. They were the owners, along with the other owners of Moulin Rouge. These were all the Russian, these were like Brighton Beach guys and Russian guys that Tarzan knew. He's the one that brought Tony the deal. So when he said we should open a strip club, he already had some guys that were already doing it. Mm. And so it was like, let's open up a second one, and we'll be part owners with them. And that's how they brokered it. Tarzan, I don't believe, didn't come with any money. Tony came up with cash, and they would pay off the rest, whatever. And that was the agreement before everything falls apart. And so we're open maybe again 5 months, give or take, whatever. And it's all Colombian girls. We're living. So Tony has one condo that was finished in Panama that we were living in, and there were 5 Colombian girls. They would come over. We would have them come over, and they lived with us essentially. And so we'd have these 5 Colombian girls, and they'd sleep in the upstairs, whatever. And again, it was. What was better than that? You know what I mean? Like I don't know how it gets any. I couldn't tell you how. So it was just that was life. And they'd make breakfast and just parade around and do their thing, whatever. And it was like a family. It was like a happy family. And so and when those 5 were kind of matriculated and they found their own place, now they're standing on their own, they're working, whatever. They moved out and did their own thing, and another 5 would come. We actually had a laundry list of so many, we couldn't bring them over fast enough because there were so many, and their cousin wanted to come, and they'd be on Facebook, and they would see the life that these girls were leading and having a great time. And again, this is now Colombia, and some of these are small town girls from Colombia. So think of the Nebraska girl, the Midwest girl, whatever. These are Colombian small town girls, whatever. They don't have much, you know what I mean? So this was a big lure for them. So we just couldn't bring them over fast enough. We weren't busy enough. We're still new and this and that. So what happens is Tony, his wife and kids are coming to visit for the first time. They had never been to Panama. Again, I'm going through a divorce. This is going to be my life. My whole thing was now to move here. Porky's in Miami was done. This is the last forefront. I don't know what there is after this. This is it. And so that was the goal. And so his wife and kids come to visit, and he tells me, look, you got to leave. I'm living in I'm pull out suitcase, whatever. I'm living on a couch. I don't have a room there. You know what I mean? We're just winging this, whatever. And so he says, you got to go for 14 days. And my wife and kids will come, and then 14 days you come back. And I didn't want to leave. I was like, I don't want to go anywhere. You got to be kidding me. And so he's like, well, you have no choice. I need the room, whatever. And so I leave, and I speak to him every day. And I already have my ticket bought for the 14 days and everything to go back and just kind of resume everything that we were doing. And on the 8th day, I'm on the phone with him, and he says, let me call you back. The police are here. Now, the cops always had their hand out there. We've always given them beers and shrimps and different things. But this apparently was different. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. And I don't hear from him the next day. I don't hear from him for 3 days after that. And that's when I knew something was bad. And I reach out to one of the girls on Facebook because there's no one else to reach out to at this point. And I find one of the girls that was part of our satellite. And she tells me, she goes, listen, it's really, really bad. The police raided the club, and they raided Moulin Rouge and Dollhouse. It's in the news. It's in the newspapers. They're talking Russian mafia, Italian mafia. It's very serious, and everyone's been arrested. There's like 100 people are in jail. And I said, holy shit. Little by little, they started letting people out that didn't really matter and whatever. And between the two places, they kept 12 people in jail between the two. Tony and Tarzan were 2 of them. It was a made up. They tried to frame them for drugs. We weren't dealing drugs. There were people dealing drugs. We had a promoter. His name was Norman. He was a Panamanian. He was our dealer. But
he's your dealer, not a dealer who's dealing out.
He was the coke. He was a promoter,
right?
Handing out flyers for us. So one of his things was, that's a good question. His thing was, Pepsi dealer, and his thing was, come in. He'd pull you by the arm, whatever. You got to come and check out the girls. So he was like one of those high pressure salesmen. You know what I mean? And so he also did that. And so I learned that he did that. And one of the things I learned about the product in Panama was it was the best you could ever get. This was dangerous. This was rocket fuel. And it was really, really cheap because Colombia's here and Panama's here. So it's just flowing over there. to smoke over there was hard. Finding good stuff to smoke was very hard. There weren't grow houses there, like we have in the States, whatever. It was just very, very not as common. So it was always swaggy, you know what I mean? But the yayo was really, really out of like this world. So Norman became my guy there. And so Norman was one of the people that got busted, and then some of our staff got busted because they were doing things on the down low. You know what I mean? But we weren't implicit in any of it. Nobody was giving anyone drugs, whatever. We were selling girls. The whole thing was selling girls. We didn't need to sell drugs.
Right.
So they used a drug case on them, and then when the drug case started to fall apart, they used human trafficking on them. And that they had more legs with. One of the things that saved their lives and saved Tony's life was 13 girls that worked for us signed affidavits that they were not human trafficked, they were not smuggled. Everything they did willingly, and there was 20 more girls that wanted to do it. They proved this.
Right.
Like they testified to it. And so they all signed off on that fact that nobody twisted anyone's arm, nobody made anybody do anything, and submitted it to the court. So that kind of made that case fall apart as well. And I think maybe Tarzan probably explained, they wound up kind of getting off on a technicality, and then they ran. Like it was like this was their moment. They were told, you're going to get rearrested. Like they have it in for you guys. You may have beaten your little thing while the prosecution appeals it now, but they're going to come back for you, and you're going to do 10 years. What was scary for me, and why I never went back, was they were watching us the whole time. So I know I'm obviously my name is in the shit, but I knew they would never come to the States looking for me. It was almost like good riddance. If you're not here, goodbye. You know what I mean? We close you down. We shut all your stuff down. You guys are done. But Norman was like kind of telling on people, and Norman was trying to save himself because he was a dealer. You know what I mean? And so he was doing a lot of ratting and whatnot. And I know for a fact that if I was there, so, the 8th day of the 14 days, this was God intervened. If I didn't believe in God before, I do now. Because it was God that made sure I wasn't there when that happened. Because if I get arrested in that, I'm going down. I've got Yo-Yo in my pocket, and Norman's telling on me, and there's a history and whatever. And so I'm definitely doing 10 years there. And so I was home. And so I got spared of all of that.
How long do these guys stay in jail?
They were there for almost 3 years.
Holy shit.
Innocently. There is no bonding out and then facing your charges. Once you're in, you're stuck in. And so they had to fight all the way. Tony threw hundreds of thousands of dollars at the problem, trying to fight his way through it. Tarzan had a lot of help internationally, and through he has a lot of connections. And I would have had nothing. My mother was dying of cancer. My mother, if she dies in that time that happens, I'm going through a divorce. So I had nobody that was going to forget commissary.
Come for your rescue. Yeah,
there's no rescue. So I die in there. Yeah. And Tony kind of even makes a little bit of a joke. Like, imagine me and Tarzan, like we would be serving this all together. But at a certain point, me and Tarzan, we got out, and we'd be like saying goodbye to you. So like, imagine so you would have been used to us, some sort of a protective thing that we could have all had together. And that if that would have came to an end. And I'm convinced I die in there too, just from the lack of being able to communicate.
Right.
I lived vicariously, the whole thing with Tony. I spoke to him every day on WhatsApp. I had to kind of get him through this. Mm-hmm. I was already his armchair attorney, armchair psychologist, armchair best friend, armchair researcher. I mean, this guy had me do everything important for him. You know what I mean? And even stupid stuff that I just wouldn't say on here. And so it was just whatever he needed from me, I did, because he was the only person that took a shot on me. He was my mentor. He was the person that I owed it to. Right. He's the one that put the money in my pocket, and he life was a fun life. You know what I mean? There's no if I die tomorrow, some fat Jew, like I had a nice run, You know what I mean? In life, you know, especially again for someone who uneducated, unskilled, you know, a lot of people in my shoes would have had it way, way worse, if not blew their head off or, you know, a junkie or whatever, like couldn't cope with all the crazy shit they went through, whatever. I mean, I've done a fairly good job of keeping my head up, and this was a big portion of why. There was something, you know, I was a somebody in this little world of that Miami Script Club thing, whatever. And so I think I said, even when Miami-Dade took us down, they said to us, you know, we can deal with the drugs, we can deal with the prostitution. We can't deal with your violence. Your place is too violent. There's too much that goes on there, whether it was shoot ups, you know what I mean? Well, we had customers.
Is that true?
Well, one of the problems in the strip club business is when you have a lot of gang affiliated customers or people involved in dope, everyone's packing guns.
Yeah.
And by the way, the whole industry's turned that way. Anyone who goes to strip clubs now, it's gotten very hood. They're packing guns. I would assume so. It's not a safe environment. It's a really debaucherous environment now more than ever because it's more hood than it ever was. All strip clubs. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, Porky's, one of the problems we ran into was if you threw a guy out, you know, they were shooting. They're either shooting at the club or shooting up in the sky to scare you. You know, whether it was Latin Kings, there was a big gang down there called the Wilos, and there would be routine. You know, whether they fought there or whatever. You know, a lot of static was the customers themselves that you had to deal with. You know what I mean? So it was a Wild West type of environment. Miami, there was a lot of them down there. It was a very highly competitive, and even the C grade hood ones. There was a lot of hood ones. There's one called Take One Lounge. They did a First 48. I think it's called the First 48, the crime show, because they killed the owner of that place and robbed him when he was coming out with the bank, whatever. You know, he had he was going to take it to the bank the next day. So it was probably an inside job, but he was being cased. And they did a whole First 48, and that was in Little Haiti, which is another not good area.
Yeah.
So all of that area was, you know, kind of tough. It was the type of place where, and Tony knew it, I knew it, you may not come home that night. It was that kind of club. You know, like you were blessed to come home that night. Was it every night like that? No. I was more on day shift, so it wasn't as rowdy and crazy. I spent my fun time at night. Tony would literally pull his car behind mine so I couldn't leave. So I did 9 hours. You know, I was tired. I didn't want to be there anymore. But it was kind of like, yeah, you're going to stay. You're going to have some drinks. You're going to fuck some girls. You're going to do something stupid, whatever. And I'm not letting you leave because you're my party buddy. And I don't care if you did 9 hours. And sometimes the joke would be, he's like, Tony, listen, I just want to go home. I just want to eat dinner or whatever and watch a movie with my family. He's like, you know what? He says, that's a great idea. Why don't you go do that and take off Thursday and Friday as well? And Jimmy will work those days for you. So it was like that kind of game too.
Yeah.
So that sent me back like $500, whatever, $1,000, you know what I mean? All because I wanted to just go home and have dinner.
Right.
You know, so like, you know, it was, you know, it was a best friend, but a very interesting, manipulative character. I still talk to him this day. We have similar business. So they got out. Him and Tarzan got out. They went their separate ways. Tarzan was not allowed in the United States at that point. That has changed. I don't know how Tarzan pulled it off, but Tarzan, not only is he in the United States, God bless him, he has a restaurant in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Called Mr. Tarzan's. So, I mean, I'll give a little shout out. So Tarzan, and I hope he contacts me. I really do. Because in my Wade thing,
I have his number.
Yeah, I've talked to him, but only with Tony. But well, here's why I say this: Tarzan did not like me, and we felt, and I thought because we're both Jews that he would. And I not that I played it up, but I just thought we had that in common, whatever. And Tarzan's a lot more Jewish than me. I think he's had a real Jewish upbringing in Ukraine, and I know that he takes it definitely more important to him than anything that's meant to me.
Yeah.
There's nothing for me for it. But Tarzan, I know it's definitely important in his life. So I thought that might be a little kinship. But when we were in Dollhouse, Tarzan made things very difficult on me. He was very hard to work for. And one of the things was, and I've only me and Tony have talked about it. I've never said that. I didn't say this on Wade either, whatever. But I think there was a jealousy factor of, he just hated my friendship with Tony. He hated it. Now, him and Tony were close, but it also started out as a work relationship that turned into a friendship. Mine with Tony was a friendship that turned into a work relationship. I went to that club and hung out with no money and was treated like royalty. As long as I brought the weed, my drinks were free, and the girls would be very sweet to me because it's like, who's Tony's friend? This guy's cool with Tony. I should be cool with this guy because it'll make me cool with Tony. So I played that up. You know what I mean? It's like, now you're Tony's boy, and you're telling every girl you're Tony's boy. You know what I mean? So just to get anything you can get out of them, because I didn't have fucking 2 nickels to rub together at the time. And that's what they're there for. They want your money.
Right.
So you better have another good angle if you're going to get any action there with no money. You don't go to strip clubs broke. You know what I mean? And I was. So.
No, you leave broke.
You leave broke. So, that was how that went. But Tarzan just did not like it. And I remember even one time in Panama, and he said, I do a good Tarzan because I think I just do a good Russian accent in general. And it was just very funny. And he says that Tony has, and we were both together because he says, I don't understand. What is it you two get along so good? What is it, your friends? Why is this? And he didn't realize, I think, that it was the weed. And it was, we just laughed a lot. It was just a great, a couple of buddies that laughed all the time. And so what pissed him off was, we're in Dollhouse, the brothel. Mm-hmm. We got the TV on. Do you remember the movie Mask with the kid with the giant head?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mask. So I'm the cry movie guy. I can give you 100 movies I've cried during. Mm-hmm. I got emotional problems. Mask, and anyone that knows me, especially Tony, is my go-to cry movie. I'll cry 20 times in Mask. When the suit, when when Rocky opens up the refrigerator, there's a suit in there. I mean, come on, are we out of our minds? I mean, how sweet was that? He wants to go to graduation. They don't give a shit. The suit's in the fridge. And so we are watching in a Panamanian whorehouse, Mask in Spanish on the fucking TV. And it was such a moment because it was the first time me and Tony had watched Mask. And we had a running joke on how Mask was my movie. That's my pussy movie. Mm-hmm. So we're watching it, and it's literally in Spanish. We had a bouncer at Dollhouse, a 6'8" gargantuan El Salvadorian guy, who, by the way, Tony was fucking his girlfriend, who was one of the hottest, not women. She was of age, but she was just a sweet, adorable girl. This wasn't a woman. This wasn't a developed like a minx. This was a girl, but she was smoking hot, and he had no business ever being with her. This is a fat meatball. It's a whole other story. He had no business with the women he had. No business with the women he had. And this was one of them. And it was his girlfriend, and he also carried a big gun on him, and he was our security.
Did he know?
He did not know. If he would have, it would have been awful. It would have been really bad. And I think it was one of those ones you don't even take a risk on, because if the girl just wanted to pull a stunt on you, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
This is the kind of guy that would have killed Tony. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so the funny thing is, and this is before Tarzan comes in, so Tony's like, Tarzan's going to be here in 5 minutes. So we put the stools together because we're at the bar, and we tighten them up, and I put my arm around Tony. And it's like, now we're like on date night, and we're watching Mask. And before Tarzan comes in, where he's like, I don't understand. What the fuck is going on with you two? We're watching Mask, and behind me, the gorilla, he's walking. You can hear him lumbering, and he stops, and he's looking at the TV. And if you know any Spanish, he says, he's looking at it, and he goes, oh, que fea. And he walks off. And que fea means how ugly. Feo, the O is a man. Fea is a woman. So he's looking at Rocky Dennis. He thinks it's an ugly chick.
Right.
Which I thought was, hilarious. But on the same token, I had such a soft spot for Rocky. It's my cry movie that I wanted to turn around to this guy and be like, yeah, he's got a fucking brain disease.
Right.
This isn't an ugly chick. This guy's got a fucking head trauma.
Right.
You know what I mean? wasn't going to get over him. This guy was a Cro-Magnon, you know what I mean? Whatever. But it was when he said it, me and Tony were like, we looked at each other, and it was just one of the funniest things because he was just so, he had no idea what he was even looking at. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he just thought it was an ugly chick. And then 2 minutes later, Tarzan came in and he blew a gasket. Tarzan would ride me so much, and me and Tony, we would if when we were taking a break during the day between all the businesses we had, whatever, and he would be like, "What are you gonna do about Tarzan?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I gonna do?" He's like, hey, "This guy's bullying the shit out of you. Like, you gotta do something at a certain point. Like, how are you letting this go down like this?" And I'm like, "What am I supposed to do? A, he's my boss, and B, you read the books about this guy. I mean, you work with him. You know." He's like, don't worry about all that. I'm like, I'm very worried about all that. And so, if you can believe it, Tarzan then started riding me one particular day about my hairstyle. I don't know why. He was very down on my hairstyle. It can't be too different than what I have fucking now. And that's when I knew, like, this is getting out of control. I'm very good with memories, but the God's honest truth, I don't really remember the context of what happened here. But we were at Dollhouse in the day, and we were closed. And I wonder if Tarzan really remembers this or not, because it all changed for the better. But Tarzan was really riding me hard. It was just the three of us there. We're having like a meeting, whatever. And I got really, really upset. And I wound up shoving him with like all of my might. I got up and I just like, that enough's enough. And I gave him like the shove of all shoves. And, you know, I make a little joke. I'm a fat dude, but I'm strong underneath this. Like, I don't want to be hit by me, and I don't want to be shoved by me. And I was surprised because Tarzan's a big dude. Yeah. I was surprised on how, like, I pushed him back way more. He took way more steps backwards than I hoped he would, because then, you know, 1 or 2 is like not so bad. 4 or 5, he's coming at you like, now we're fucking on. Right. And he didn't. And he was nicer to me from that day forward. He was never really nice to me. Yeah. But he was hard to work for. I mean, I think even Tarzan would have to agree, even with the girls, he was hard to work for. And he just, when someone doesn't like you and your friendship with the other guy and all that, it sucks when he's your boss. You know what I mean? And it was actually going to make me leave. And if you're going to leave a Colombian whorehouse where you're doing yo-yo every night, rocket fuel every night, and the girls would literally, and they all spoke Spanish. So I speak a little bit of Spanish, you know what I mean? So I was able to DJ and pick out their songs, you know what I mean? Okay, que reggaeton, mami, blah, blah, blah. And they would come in the booth, and I swear to you, all jokes aside, and again, you got to remember, this is a 38, 40-year-old fat Jew. Mm-hmm. It's important that people know that because it's rare. It's very rare. And they're coming in and they're picking out their song, and it's like, it's a little bit of yo-yo, and she picks out the song, and we make out, and I'm grabbing all over her, and it's like, oh my God, is this really fucking happening? Like, what is going on here? And then 5 minutes later, it's the next dancer doing the same thing. And 10 minutes later, it's the next dancer doing the same thing. And it was just like, no one's leaving that. That's why when he told me you got to go home for 14 days, I was actually crying. I was actually crying. And the ironic part was, and I can send you some pictures for this from I have a lot of Panama photos, whatever. Okay. But we had a girl, she must have been 5'11". I was crying the same day because this stands out. I can't remember her name, but she was a beautiful, just round the way girl. She was not one of our dancers. She was not a whore, whatever, but she wanted us to whore her out. She was literally begging us to pimp her out. I have pictures of her. Beautiful girl. And she was tall. And I just remember the same day I had my suitcase outside to go to the airport. And I was like, I can't believe I got to fucking leave, man. It's just like one of those, I'm not crying like a for real crying, but I was just like, this fucking sucks, man. Like, I was going through a divorce. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to be back in Brevard County. And so we were taking pictures of her to eventually to put online and this and that and whatever. Obviously, it all fell apart because everything came crashing down like a ton of bricks. But I do remember that was the same day that I left. And another crazy story, if you can believe, was when I landed in Fort Lauderdale when this happened. And I don't even know, the raid doesn't happen at that point. But when I land And it was like at fucking 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Line A, line A, line A, line B. Me, line B.
You just came back from Colombia.
Panama,
sorry.
Same to them.
Yeah.
I was wearing this. They take notice of me when I'm walking around. And I didn't want to be in line B. And everyone else, there's no one else in line B other than me. And that's when they say, open everything up. And it was first a TSA agent, and they're wearing the blue. I'm not so worried. And then it's go take lunch, go take your break, whatever, it's 3 in the morning, whatever the fuck it was. Now it's a white Homeland Security guy. It's not TSA anymore. Right. It's a step up. And he's going through everything. And he's asking me a million questions. More than he was searching my shit, which why would I? No one's putting I didn't take anything with me. I'm not an idiot.
Right.
But he was asking a lot of intrusive questions over and over. What's your business there? What are you doing? Who's the strip club? Who's Tony? Who's this? What's this? And I wasn't sure what he was getting, but what he was doing, whenever I would answer these, he's entering it into some sort of system, whatever. He had me there for 45 minutes. And again, bending the shoe, doing everything, whatever. And then after about 45 minutes to an hour, it seemed like, and let's just say it was Officer Smith or whatever. I said, Officer Smith, are we finally done with this? I mean, like, am I clear? Because I don't know what's happened to me. Oh, I left out. They call me in they don't strip search me, but they say, we need you to come in the other room. We're going to search you. And they 2-man searched me. I don't know if that's because I'm fat and they needed 2 guys' hands for it or whatever, or they were going to do such a thorough search. I thought they were going to strip search me, which I didn't know if that's legal or not, whatever. But when they said, you got to come in the other room, it was like for a privacy factor, but they pat me down like thoroughly. You know what I mean? Where it was like they bought me a cocktail after, because that's what happened. You know what I mean? And so, which was also made it very scary, because at that point you have to understand, Matt. I'm thinking they're gonna plant something on me. Like, now I'm in trouble, and so I said, officer, is this finally over? And he says, yes, you're good to go. And all the shit was all disheveled, and you close up your thing or whatever. And the kicker to that was, he says to me, he goes, well, he says, I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to give you this, and then you're on your way. I said, well, what are these? He says, so this right here is a pamphlet on why you were in line B and what we do here, like why we did this. You know what I mean? Like, for my security, for the security of the world, whatever. So like, they're letting you know why we did this. And then the other one was the customer satisfaction form that they wanted me to fill out of how did this go for you? You know what I mean? You know, like, did we get 5 stars for scaring the shit out of you? And so,
but you never found out what that was for?
No, I don't know to this day. Tarzan and Tony had interesting things in Panama that how they got their story out. They wanted their story out mainly just to get out of jail. We need help. Somebody get us the fuck out of here.
Right.
And they were doing it on their own in some sort of separate ways, any way they could. So Tarzan actually had and there's some of these, I don't know if you know this, there's residual of these called Mr. Prisoner on YouTube. They took them all down. He took them down. But some other people, and it was all done in Russian. A lot of the titles were in Russian, and then he spoke in Russian in them. And he was showing the deplorable conditions of La Jolla, and they were not happy about it. When La Jolla found out that he had a YouTube channel showing their prison, they got really, really pissed about it. And so what they did was they strong-armed the inmates and said, take away this guy's shit. He's got an iPad he's doing all this shit with. And apparently the way the story went, what Tony told me, is they encircled him in a big, big circle and were like, you're giving us your iPad or we're killing you, because they're coming down on us. Because, first of all, there were no guards at night there. This was the prisons there. This is what's crazy. It polices itself at night. The guards go home.
Yeah.
Now the prisoners run the fucking asylum. And so they basically made Tarzan get rid of the iPad and stop the show, because again the conditions were deplorable. People died in there over water. Water ran out. If the tank came and everyone ran and got their water, and let's say the first 50 got it, and that's it. So everyone needed to gather rainwater and buckets. Buckets were your best friend. People would have 7, 10 fucking buckets, you know, like from Home Depot, whatever. And it became your wash bucket, your drink bucket, your everything. And you were drinking rainwater. I mean, people died. I have pictures of the body. Again, I'll forward you a bunch of the stuff. Contraband, guns in the jail, everything in there. You know what I mean? Drugs in there. It was no air conditioning, so it was like hot, like 100 degrees hot. And then the critters, alligators, snakes, scorpions, giant cockroaches, things that were from like National Geographic. Like it's as big as that fucking can, and it was like rainbow colored. What the fuck's on your arm? You know what I mean? So like it was really bad. And so again, I was constantly talking to Tony to get him through it. Tony pulled up to give you an idea of how great Tony really was. This guy was, I mean, I don't want to say he's a criminal mastermind. That's not the best way to put it. But talk about a guy who can just go with the flow and figure out what he needs to do to just keep it going. He's in the prison in Panama, and a lot of the prisoners are separated. All the other nationalities and the Panamanians, they're called, and they're in pavilions or pavilions, I guess, and they're all separated. And so the Colombians and people that he started noticing, everyone had a cell phone. So all the contraband was allowed in there because you would pay the guards to allow it, and then they would wrap it all up and take it all back, and you'd have to pay them again to get all over again. So it was a give and take. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, all right. So all the guys, the young guys that were in there for shit, were on a specific app called Tagged. So it was like a dating site, whatever. And it had all like hot pictures of girls and all that. I'm sure some of them were real, some of them were fake, whatever. And Tony started realizing that this is pretty interesting. But these guys were really writing to girls and trying to get girls to send them nudes and all that, and just anything that would get something to the outside world. Tony discovered this was a great way to make money. And so what he was going to do was he was going to pretend to be a girl.
Yeah.
And use the photos. Never talk to nobody, never video nobody, just message them. And what his shtick was I'm stuck in Panama. I'm trying to get to the States. I have my ticket. I'm $50 short. I just need $50.
That's a very common one. That's the one where the guy comes up on the street. Yo, I live in Orlando, bro. I just need a bus ticket. I'm like $17 shy. Yes. My friend, some guy was here. We got into an argument. He left me. It's like, okay.
Fuck you. They do it at gas stations a lot too. I just need $10 in gas, man. This is my car right there. It's like that car just pulled out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when it's a girl, so what he did was he first of all, the guys are writing him. He just puts out the bait. This hot photos that he ripped off of Facebook. The guys, hundreds of them, write him. Some, they're not interested in sending no money, whatever. But the ones where he's like, listen, I have nowhere to go when I come to the States. You think it's okay I come stay with you? And it's like some 46-year-old guy who has, he's an incel, who knows what's going on with this guy, right? So he knew who to talk to from their profile pictures. You know what I mean? And it's the same like when you see To Catch a Predator, and it's like, it's the black guy, it's the white guy, it's the Muslim guy, it's the Jewish guy, it's the fat guy, it's the 26-year-old, it's the 38-year-old. It's all of them.
Yeah.
So he's got a laundry list of them. And so the whole thing is like, I'm tired of these Colombian guys. My last boyfriend, he hits me. I just want somebody I can come home. I just need to be able to cook and clean, have somewhere to sleep at night. I just want a regular American guy. Are you that guy? Well, for $50, you better believe he's that guy. And so that he just accumulated all these guys doing it. Mm-hmm. And when he finally was getting out of jail the first time, and they appealed that they were going to put him back in, but they released them at a certain point. I think Tony said he had somewhere like, I don't know, $2,000-$3,000 in cash on him. And the only reason it mainly worked for him was, and this was the key, somebody was already running a business of, the guy was on the inside, the wife was on the outside, so you could send money to the wife through Western Union, and she would tell the husband in the jail, give them so and so money. So they were loan sharking in in the prison. So when Tony would have these guys sending money, Western Union me the money, and it would go to a woman's name.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a lady on the outside he can do it with.
She takes a piece.
And she kept a piece. Yeah. Otherwise, how was he getting the money?
Yeah.
So that it worked. And when they saw his cash, they were like, you can't have this. So you're going back in because of this. And he basically was like, hey man, fucking keep it. I want out of here. Take the fucking money. You know, you can't even worry about it at that point. So he had accumulated, you know, it was such a great thing, and it was such a great little Ponzi scheme. But this is how guys were. And he was so thorough about it that he actually called the police like in one of these towns and said, and he pretended to be the guy. And he was like, yeah, you know, I have some girl in another country, and she asked me for money online. I sent her the money, and I don't think she's real. I'm like, well, did you ever talk to her? It's like, no. And did you ever see her? No. And he's like, well, what do I do about it? It's like, there's nothing you can do about it. You're fucked.
Yeah. So
and that's what he wanted to hear.
Of course, he knew. What am I going to do? We're gonna put 3 officers on a plane. We're gonna fly to Panama to hunt down your fucking $150.
Yeah, exactly. And he knew the key is ask for the $40, the $50, the $60.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
They're not going to give it.
Yeah,
but they're
not going to give you $200 right now, but they'll give you 40, and then 30, and then 50, and then
you keep stringing them along.
Yeah, next thing you know, they've given you the 200.
He told me one guy, he's like, listen. So this was such a thing for him that he would be like, listen, I need to go and I got to go work. He would put in like 3 hours. Like, so we would be talking. He's like, all right, listen, I'll call you back. I got to put in some work with these guys. So like this was a job in the jail for him at a certain point. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You had to keep it going, you know, because these guys are messaging. Where are you? You know what I mean? You know, so he had to do that. And then I remember he would tell me like these guys would come to the airport like looking to pick her up.
Oh yeah.
And be like messaging like, where are you? I'm here at Delta.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, right, and then you tell them that you're trapped in customs, and because you came here and you don't have any money, they won't let you through. Can you Western Union me? They will not allow a tourist in without having funds to be a tourist.
Yes, this is true.
Can you if you send me you have to have $1,000 American, but I'm on the other side of customs. I'm in customs. You can see, but he can't go into customs. But so if you just PayPal me $1,000, I'll give it to you right back as soon as I get. As soon as I'm on the other side, I PayPal it right now. And then the guy's like, "Fuck, I'm standing here. She's coming.
Like we're this close."
And there he goes, and he PayPal's $1,000, and he's walking around with a dozen roses.
Yeah.
And she never shows up. She never comes out of customs. She never hears from you. You never hear from him again.
When Craigslist was a big thing, we knew a guy who was a customer of ours. He went to prison for this, and he would go on Craigslist. And he would only use payphones, and he would use a calling card. He specifically would call Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, and he would post ads on Craigslist for concerts, football packages, anything that was big, you know, Def Leppard, backstage passes, parking, whatever. And he had a story that his brother worked for CNN, and he would get hold of these tickets and this and that. And the thing was, Western Union me the money, and I'm going to send you the tickets, but I need the money first. And these were people that were so excited about it that they were willing to take these risks. Now, the key to Western Union, a lot of people don't know, and it's still to this day, even with all the fraud and things that go on, you do not need an ID if you provide a password.
Right.
And it's still to this day. You think they would have eliminated that.
Yeah.
But they have not. So he would tell them, look, I can't run the risk of my brother getting his shit taken away at CNN. We have the same last name. And if you want to walk, I get it. I'm going to sell these tickets to somebody. But you're not going to see Aerosmith Saturday night. Just know that. And so it's the pull away, you know?
Yes.
And so he's like, but I need you to, you know, when we do these tickets, you're going to send it to Butterworth. That's the password, Butterworth, or whatever it was. You know what I mean? And then so, you know, and that was the key why you could never get caught doing that. I don't know how he slipped and got in trouble. And maybe it wasn't even in that little thing he did because he was involved in Medicare shit. The amount of people I met doing Medicare fraud in Florida is just like off the, you know what I mean? Like no, I don't think people knew that, like, you write up all the fake stuff, whatever, they send you all the money, and then they audit it like 2 months later.
Right.
You've already closed up the business.
Well, it's like filing for taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They immediately issue the tax refund, and then maybe in a year from now they go, they might audit you, or the person you're filing for their taxes. Then they file their taxes and they say, "What? You already filed your taxes. You already got your money."
Right.
And they're like, "No, I didn't." And they're like, "Oh, wait, someone stole your ID." But by that point, I got the money put on a fucking debit card, and I've already spent the $7,000. And
yeah. So I think, and especially with businesses, if you can close up shop, there was a guy that he taught me a lot of that after he got out of it, and it was a telemarketing business that he was selling vacations to swingers. And he had just like a boiler room, and I wound up being his main caller guy. And he would go to strip clubs, and he was the one where, like, you get the big the plastic thing, and you're gonna win a trip, whatever, and you stick the things in to win a trip.
Yeah.
All they were was lead generation.
Yeah.
And so it was called Caliente, and it was like in the Bahamas or some shit. And it was a swingers place, and it was all timeshares. They're trying to sell you whatever. But he was giving away $300 vacations for free. Or no, they were free vacations he was getting for free, and only charging $300 for the weekend. With, you know, and it was for a couple, whatever. So he was making $300 a pop on every one of these. And then if they sat down to the thing, they got even more money. And it was such a great racket. And I was only calling swingers and nudists. And I started noticing too the difference between the two. Like, nudists were just like, we just like to play tennis naked. I mean, we don't swing per se.
Yeah.
We just don't like wearing clothes. And swingers are like freaks. Like, they don't like to wear clothes, and they want to fuck everybody. You know what I mean? So they're not the same. So nudists would get actually really mad that they would be considered like they were still like the swinger community, or it was called the lifestyle. That was always the generic term was the lifestyle. So, but nudists did not like to be lumped in the same boat as them. You know what I mean? They were just like, we just don't want to wear clothes. It's hot. And swingers were all about a whole different thing. And so that's where I think Palm Beach has Deanie's Hideaway, Miami Velvet, and then Broward has their own.
Each are these for nudists?
No, these are swingers clubs.
Because we have is it Paradise? Well, you wouldn't know. I think they have like Paradise City or something like that, which is in Land O'Lakes, Florida. Land O'Lakes is one of the.
I feel like I've heard of that.
I think it's like for nudists, it's like the capital of the nudist capital or something. They got some big areas.
Nudists are it's interesting people because they're very communal and hippie like.
Yeah, they all want to be in these.
That's all it is. They just want to be nude.
They're just walking around, walking their dogs naked.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
but swingers and none of them are hot, by the way. I don't know if anyone's
no. There's no hot.
A lot of guys.
There's no hot. The nudists. It's like a lot. These people are just like, you shouldn't be naked.
Yeah, it's
you
awful.
Really shouldn't.
And that's why they're doing it. I think they're doing it to flaunt it too. Like, yeah, we know you don't want to see it. That's why we're doing it. But yeah, the swingers is a whole different thing. And they're also, I noticed with the swingers, it's also older, a lot of older.
Same thing with the nudists.
They're all older.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Villages?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Village is a ton of swingers going on there, elderly swingers.
Doesn't have like the highest rate of like sexually STDs.
Yeah, like for a concentrated area.
Yeah, these are like fucking old people. They're like fucking their 70s.
So old people obviously aren't worried about pregnancy. So there's no reason to have a condom. And they don't care about the STDs.
Because they're going to be dead soon.
They're going to be dead soon. And the other thing is that for guys, it seems like it's like 6 women for every guy. That's just as you get older in general. Women live longer.
Right.
So in that area, like if you're an older guy, like if you're an older guy and you don't live there, and you're like, let's say you're a widow or single, why are you not there?
Yeah.
And if you're into MILFs and GILFs and whatever, and you're a younger guy, why are you not there? I've been there. They have money, and these are older, attractive older women.
These are not older women that the husband has died.
Yes.
And
she's sitting on the money.
Right.
But they're women who they're not slobs.
Yeah.
They are dressing up nice. They go out to drink all the time. It's an affluent area. They're always out at restaurants. They're all swinging. They're all pineappling, whatever the fuck they're doing.
Then the golf carts.
Yeah, and it's all in their golf carts. So again, yeah, if you in any way are into older women, why you're not there, I would have no idea, because you would be having the time of your life. Because I think it's mainly older guys. If there's some younger guys there.
So have you seen the golf carts now compared to golf carts when I was growing
like
up?
$40,000.
They're fucking outrageous. They got fucking
out of control.
They got like a 4-wheeler tires on them, and they're jacked up, and it's like.
Yeah, like this is the Stone Cold 316 edition. Yeah, I don't know what happened here. And you're right. There's a neighborhood by me called Vieira where they're all in them. The Villages is all in them. There's just are you familiar with in South Florida called Weston? Weston's a very affluent. It's like West Broward out by 75 over there. And all those people have that's all they drive around on. There's community that's all.
You can go like from your house to Publix. Like they have it set up so that you can go anywhere.
Yes.
You can go anywhere. You don't need to drive anywhere.
No, and there's enough sidewalks and all the things that get you around on them. But yes, these things are extremely expensive. Anyone who has one of these is doing very, very well, because who the fuck needs one of those? They have 3 nice cars in their garage already.
Yeah, if you need to buy a car, you go to Sarasota.
Why is that?
Because they're all old people. They never drive their cars. So you go buy a car for like 3 years old, and it's got like 8,000 miles on it. You're like, this thing's 3 years old.
Right.
Now, you're not going to get, the cars are going to be like...
Buick.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Fucking
Buick. No miles on it.
This is a beautiful Skylark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly.
Champagne colored, fucking great. Yeah, but you're right. It's a hell of a deal.
It is, and it's the normal price. It's not like they're even taking off for the. It's like okay, this is the same. I could get this vehicle for 50,000 miles on it, or the one with 8,000 miles on it.
Yeah. Listen. It's a smart play. If you're making a smart play, but I get it. Sarasota, I didn't know they had that going on there like that.
So many old people.
Yeah.
So many old people. Have you ever been to Sarasota? It's like it's not like you go to Sarasota, right? It's like you're like, fuck. Like this is nice. Yeah. Everything is nice. Everything is over the top.
Are they rich there?
Of course, it's a hugely wealthy community of old retirees.
Yeah. I definitely heard of it. My elderly experience was in South Florida, had a lot of elderly pockets, but probably not as affluent as like what that is. I know that, speaking of other parts of Florida, they have a lot of rich old people. It's Jupiter and Stewart.
Yes.
Those got a lot of money, especially the ones that are by the beach. Anything by the beach just makes like that. It's on a whole nother like stratosphere, not just South Beach or Fort Lauderdale Beach or what we're familiar here. And it's probably the same way in Tampa, St. Pete. Anything that's over by the water, you know what I mean? It's just tons of money. I wound up meeting this girl, and it's my goal is to make her my wife at this point, whatever. But through the connections that I made through Panama and Colombia and this and that, her name is Angie.
Nice.
She's 27, and this is my future son that I got to take care of. And that's on my birthday that she did that, whatever. She did it in Colombia. You know what I mean? So I'm like praying to God that I can really bring this home. And like that would be the great cherry on the story of my life, would be that for everything that I've been through and everything that I've gone through and still like kind of landed on my feet, whatever, it'd be nice to kind of retire, just go off in the sunset. I don't really care how many more years I have left. I don't foresee myself having many years anyways, to be honest. I would like to have more, but I don't foresee that I'm going to live a long life, whether it's health-wise or just anything. And I think when you go to other countries, you put yourself in a little bit of a danger sometimes. Mm-hmm. There's a definite risk involved in that. So you always want to be careful. I learned that with Panama. There was a definite risk.
Risk in what way? Like to get robbed?
To get robbed or to get kidnapped or to be set up or go to jail there. When you can't communicate as well the same way, or if you're going to get involved in anything that just by chance might not totally be on the up and up in any way, shape, or form, you're running a risk, or if you're going to meet girls or whatever, and they're just like, they want to get over on you, let's say.
Yeah.
And they're going to set you up.
Yeah.
It could be the taxi driver that sets you up. It could be anything. So, you mean, like, you got to be very careful. And maybe it's not all countries, but it's the countries that I think I want to go to. I think you got to be more, you should definitely have it in the back of your head. And, you know, I wear this. This is a life preserver. So this, you know, being, you know, the whole theory behind having this, and my ex-wife has bought that for me, was if I lose all of my money, if I just have to start completely over my life, if I never have nothing again, I can sell that and start over and go anywhere and just start a life with what that has value in, you know what I mean?
Right.
And thank God gold has gone like off the charts. But for me, that's what it's become. It's more of a life preserver than anything else that I wear around my neck to just kind of start over. But I wouldn't go to Colombia and wear this. I don't think that would be smart.
No, I was going to say, unless they take that.
They will take that.
Yeah.
And they may take more of you to thinking, if you have that, what else do you have? But I mean, there's a goal here, and then that's to try to if I can bring that home truly, and until I have it, I mean, I think I do have it. I've done very well by her and her son. I saved her life. She had a little bit of a cancer scare. I saved her life. You know, making sure that she was taken care of and this and that in that regard. And so, like, I mean, I don't want to say you owe me, but like, no one's going to do better than what I can do. And I think that for a lot of girls overseas, American guys are a prize to them.
They're a catch. Yeah,
they are a catch. And some of it is, it's not just that American guys are better or whatever. It's just it's like anywhere, they're so used to what they have that you're the exotic one. The same way an Asian girl or a Hispanic girl may be exotic to you, typical than the typical white, black girls, whatever. Especially if you're from smaller areas. If you're from bigger cities, you've seen a lot of different girls of all different kinds. But if you're from a smaller town, it's probably the same old, same old. So what's exotic to us is different to them, and so that's what I'm hoping for. And just I learned a lot in Panama. They're all Colombian girls.
Yeah,
Colombian girls and Colombia. I mean, look, they all win all the pageants, right? There's a reason that these are the hottest girls on the planet. Mm-hmm. That girl's a Colombian girl, and so it's just there's something different about them. And in Panama, those were all the girls that worked there. We had Panamanian girls, but it was all Colombian girls that worked there. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we interviewed a high-end madam, and she was flying in Colombian girls they could come in for like 3 months, and so they would come in, stay for 3 months, they'd make $40,000 and fly back, and that was like they were coming back with $500,000 to Colombia. Like they were like, it's fucking they're like making a ton of
money. Your money goes very far. Yeah. And I would tell anybody too, if you're not really stuck in the States for any reason, if you want your money to go further, find somewhere else to go. Your money doesn't go far here, and it's actually going to get worse. Yeah. This inflation, everything that's going on now is I'm a political junkie. I follow all this, and nothing's getting better here. That's another reason I kind of want an out, as well as I just don't see anything getting really better here, and I think the grip is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter as things go.
We have a buddy that lives in Colombia. Not Colombia. He lives in Cambodia. Why do you keep saying?
Oh, okay.
And he lives in Cambodia. He started in Thailand, and then because when he went there, the oh gosh, what am I saying? The visa thing was like you could stay for 3 months, fly out for a day, fly right back. They give you another 90 days. You could do that forever. Yes. And he had been there maybe the last time he did it. He did like 3 times in a row, or two or 3 times in a row. They said, "Listen, you can't do this anymore." And he was like, "What?" And they said, "This is the last one. Next time you come here," they said, "when you try and come back in," they said, "you got to wait a year." And he was like, "What?" So it was like his whole plan was, so he went to Cambodia, and they didn't give a shit. Like they're like, "I don't give a fuck, bro. Yeah. Just come here and spend your money."
Right.
You know?
There's so much less going on there. That's a very poor country. Thailand, but Thailand's got a lot going on. If Asian's your thing, that is where you want to go. I mean, that is a party capital, and it's mainly Europeans. Americans are there. How did you? Well, it's crossed my head. How did you meet Wade?
Wade had like 4,000 3,000 subscribers. He had no subscribers. He reached out to me and said, hey, would you let me interview you? And I'd just been on programs, my videos at that time, the ones where I was being interviewed were getting millions of views. And so he just took a shot. Wade's big at taking a shot.
Right.
And I said, and he said, yeah, I do it Zoom, blah, blah, blah. And I checked out his channel and I saw that the Zooms. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And so he interviewed me for whatever, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And he was so appreciative that he told himself, because I had started my own channel at that time, or was starting one, or something. And he said he was so appreciative. He said that he was going through something at the time, right? Which you know what that was.
Yeah, he had his own legal
issues. He had legal issues. So, and he told himself, when my legal issues are done, if it works out and I'm not in prison, I'm going to contact this guy. I'm going to go on his channel. I'm going to tell him. And so he did. It's like, we're talking about like a year and a half later, he contacted me and said, hey, you remember? And I was like, yeah, what's up? He said, so I had an issue at that time. And he explained to me what it was. He said, I want to come on your program. And I, and I was like, absolutely. So he came on the program and told a great story. Right. And it did really well for us too at that time. Yeah. I don't know what it has now, but at that time it was like, wow. And he told it was so good. And he was such a genuinely decent person, just a regular blue-collar worker, right? Regular salt of the earth, all-American, middle-class guy, right? Like, which I love. And I just thought, like, just what a great guy. So we stayed in contact. Yeah. I texted him. He texted me back. Hey, you ought to interview this guy. Hey, you ought to interview this guy. Hey, what about this? Hey, what? And before you knew it, we just became friends. Yeah. That's how he contacted me and said, listen, man, you got to talk to this guy. Yeah, you got to talk to this guy. I just interviewed this guy. Yeah,
he came across again. I agree. He was a cool guy, great guy, and I think he found me on Instagram, whatever. So I had not been on social media for a while, so I think I just checked it out of the blue, and that's where he was just sitting there, and maybe I think it wasn't like 100 weeks old, but like only 2 or 3 weeks old that he had direct messaged me, and then I was able to kind of put it together with him and make that happen.
How many views did that end up getting? It was like
the first one did 115. That's 3 years ago.
Yeah, so that was a ton. Like for us, that was probably a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we've been friends ever since. He'll come down. He'll use the studio, or we'll meet up places, and he tried to go on vacation with him once or twice, but he's got a normal job. He and his wife. Okay. They've got they're like normal people. Yeah. So,
he's got a son, I think, right?
Yeah, he's got a son. Yeah. He's got,
no, but it's cool that anytime you can make a friendship out of something like that, it's pretty cool. So he came across as good. And again, I apologize to you. I still have my demons. I still fight. I was going through some shit the last time with you. So I sincerely appreciate that you, even took my calls, whatever. But I still battle my addiction to things to this day. And so, and sometimes they get the best of me. And it can bleed over into some of your personal affairs because, if you go too hard in the paint, you're going to have some bruises. So, and that's what happened. The first go around was just, it was just, really, it was just irresponsibility. And that comes along with being, an addict, I think. So, I'm still going through that. I have a very addictive personality to a lot of things. And so I do my best to curb how many things it's with because it's never a good thing. Mm-hmm. Whether it's your interest in women or food or yayo or whatever the fuck it is. I don't think anything is good. You know what I mean?
In excess.
Yeah, right. So, you got to find some balance. There's a chi somewhere in there. I just, I don't know where my chi went. So, but I got to find it. I think, as far as social media, I do have an Instagram. It's at Mr. and it's always spelled out MISTER, Josh W. Anything that I do is probably like that. I'm thinking of podcasting again myself. I did political podcasting before. I didn't have a team. I didn't put really too much money toward it, but I wasn't getting the hits I was putting way too much time and effort into something that wasn't getting me the views.
Right.
And I mean, I couldn't keep fucking doing that. And it was one thing is like, okay, if you want to monetize this one day, you got to get views.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not worried I'm not monetizing it, but I'm nowhere even near getting to this point. And it was mainly politics.
Yeah.
But again, if you can find me on sfl.media. I'm a writer on there. I do writing. I've done interviews. I'm actually a really great interviewer. I probably interviewed maybe 20 local Miami celebrities. I've interviewed Dirt Nasty, who was a rapper. Gorilla Tech was a producer. DJ Irie, who's the Miami Heat DJ and club DJ. Eddie Trotto, who's a famous custom bike builder from down south. So there was a time when that was my only job. It was called the South Florida Chronicle, and it was a very weed based. We were New Times competition of New Times. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I do have a couple of legitimate businesses now that I do to make my money and how I pay my bills. But I would love to spend more time behind a camera, and whether it's telling this story or doing comedy of some sort. I think I have a story to tell, and I think you talk about motivational speaking. If I really went through my story and in depth of all the sad bullshit, whatever, and to be standing where I'm standing, I think there'd be a lot of people that would look at me and be like, "Wow, this guy's really surprisingly made it through." And that's even whether and there's 10 reasons for that. So I'm kind of entertaining that idea of trying to pivot into something like that, and maybe something a little lighter in the podcast world, or just making content. You know what I mean? I'm pretty clever. So I don't know. I never took it seriously enough or wanted it to be a thing. But you want to know, to be honest, Matt, I see a lot of very not talented people doing very well.
Yeah.
And it kind of even bothers me. I watch Kill Tony, and I'm thinking, like, these people are not funny.
Mm-hmm.
And like the ones that he has touring for him, and like that are making a thing for themselves, I'm like, I don't understand. If I really put my mind in this, I would kill this. So I'll give you one joke before we leave that I wrote. I'm not a good joke writer. Most of my comedy is just storytelling. Mm-hmm. But I did write this joke, and it's kind of painful. And it goes back to my father and talk about. So when my mother left, my father told me I never had chores. He didn't give a shit. Whatever he says. My mother leaves, and he goes, "So you understand?" He says he sits me down. He says, you're gonna have to do some things now that your mom's gone. I said, "Okay, what's that?" He says, "I'm gonna tell you right now. You're gonna mow the lawn. Right here where we live. You're gonna mow this lawn every fucking Saturday. And if you don't mow the lawn, I'm gonna put you in this closet, and I'm gonna mow for 3 hours. And that's how it's gonna go every weekend if you don't mow this lawn." And I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. I mean, A, I don't think I was ever before by him, and B, you're warning me ahead of time that you're going to do this. This is scary. It took 3 years of me being in that closet every Saturday before I realized, and I called him out and realized, not only did we not have a lawnmower, but I lived in an apartment complex where they mowed the lawn for us anyways.
Horrible. Horrible.
3 years. 3 years in.
All right.
What a grift he pulled off, huh?
Right. All right. Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, if you want to follow Josh, go to his Instagram or check out any of his writing. We're going to leave the links to both of those sites and Instagram and everything in the description box. So we'll leave his social media, and we'll leave the writing website. So you can go there, click on them, follow, check out what he's written. Once again, if you want to be a guest, we're going to leave our website. So you can go there, go to the Be a Guest page, fill out a short form. I think it's like 7 questions, and leave like a 3-minute video. No big deal. We'll get back with you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate you guys watching. See ya.